Well, we're doing our usual Monday stream, and got up about maybe 10 minutes ago. No, about 20 minutes ago. Yeah. So I mentioned before that sometimes when I'm by myself, I think about certain things, and sometimes when I'm not by myself, I think about certain things because it just seems so often that I'm forced to be around people that I think are pretty awful. But I was just kind of sitting here and I was thinking about how on the internet, especially, you have this, in my opinion, archaic belief that if someone is truly talented or is like doing something that could be considered good in a way that is not unlike most people, they will be known for this, that they will become more famous or notable, for this talent that they have. And I'm telling you, it's so interesting to have been online for as long as I have, in a lot of different capacities. I mean, whether it was here or um, a lot of these other websites. And I guess just kind of be, just observe like a fly on the wall and just see the types of people who get larger and larger, and to know that no matter, because there's I have this group of people that and it's not that huge, but it's like they show up every now and again, who try to tell me that I am negative and that this, like they talk about this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I always say it's so stupid to tell the one person trying to make things different that they are the reason it stays the same. Like it's an oxymoron, and it's also a way for them to feel better about a situation they don't totally understand. But I got tired of all of this ridiculous positivity, because I'm someone who looks at patterns and the way things are done, and draws a conclusion based off of that. There have been a few instances where I've been taken by, through a curve. I mean, um, if we want to get to an example that is like not specifically pertaining to me, um, there's I'm not going to bring that up because that's not even entirely what I'm talking about. That's like a story prediction. But all I'm getting at is I really hate that, like, as a person, like as just as an entity that discusses things on here, you will sit down for sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours, and you will explain, and what I think is pretty vivid detail, why you believe a certain thing. And then you'll have these individuals who 9 times out of 10 you've never seen before show up, write some comments about whatever personality they think you have and what viewpoint you should have. And you're just sitting here and you're like, did you not even watch what we were saying? Like, I noticed I became more frustrated with this website, and less caring about having a dialogue, when it seemed like every time somebody would write a comment, it like basically ignored all the words that came out of my mouth. It was like they were talking about a title or the subject, but not addressing what was actually being said on my part about it. It was really insane, because I when I leave comments on people's stuff, I always address the things they're saying, and and sometimes the topic is like a thing I'm also interested in. That's usually why I watch the video in the first place. But the idea is that I try to, if I'm talking on someone else's channel, the comment section, or even on their stream, at least acknowledge the things that they're saying instead of just giving these generic comments about what's occurring. But what's so insane to me is that, you know, it's like they want me to ignore reality. It's like they want me to believe in this thing that has never shown any signs of improving. I mean, YouTube has a feature where I, as a content creator, can actually track the number of subscribers I've gotten over the years. And it's like I watch, like, I know for a fact it's been stagnant ever since 2017. Um, Whereas when I watch channels, sometimes like ones that cover the same stuff as me, and I cover a whole bunch of, but like let's say just take the news for example. I look at Kyle, this is a person who I know 5, 6 years ago had like, what was it, 500,000, and now he's at almost 1 million. I look at David Packman. This is someone who I knew and watched back when he had a couple, like maybe 300,000, 400,000. I watched him since I was in high school. I know the Young Turks did not have, what is it, 5 million now? But my point is that I watch all of these different people, and they all have grown and gotten larger and just continuously get bigger and bigger. And for whatever reason, you just sit you sit in this little bubble, in this little like tiny space with the most vapid, like, pretty much no support. And you can't expect someone who, in their view, whether it's correct or not, in their view, works or thinks they work as hard as any of the other people on these websites, um, and allow and think they're going to be convinced if they just keep trying, they're going to see some huge level of growth that will reward them for all their efforts. And like I hate so much that a lot of times people will talk about these pills or whatever, because it's just a stupid terminology that gets thrown around instead of actually listening to what somebody is saying. But I'm very honest about the fact that I believe for the remainder of the time I post stuff on this website, it could be another 5 years, it could be another 10 years, it could be another 20. For the remainder of time that I post content on this website, I will, at most, if I do a video, get a couple hundred views and maybe an early four-digit number, and you'll get a subscriber or a few from a video, and then out of those, like, 3 or 5 subscribers, you might get one of them that actually watches, or none of them usually. So, I'm not gonna sit here and allow myself to be tricked into some delusion of grandeur that, you know, if you just keep posting stuff. And I guess what also drives me crazy is that you have people that are like, "Oh, you should work harder and you should edit video." I remember I had this one bizarre person who tried to say that, "Oh, people don't like to watch someone who has like the background I have." And I said, "Well, first of all, um, you look at the Young Turks, you look at any of these other people that have been doing this stuff for a number of years, and they all have what is called some kind of like evolution in terms of what their format originally looked like. So, for example, if you look at a lot of the early TYT videos, it's like them in the living room or something. But the point I'm making is, because of the success that they were able to have, they were, where they actually were paid for covering this stuff in some substantial way. They were able to go out and get themselves a studio or some other place to record their various uploads. And you can't expect the person who's getting basically no support, next to nothing, to have the same opportunities, and equipment available to them that someone who gets paid to do this stuff. Just like I had the one idiot that was talking about, why do you always? It's like, dude, if someone is unemployed, you really are surprised they have a limited wardrobe. Like, so I said it's like there's almost it's so funny how you can have a small channel and be treated like a quasi celebrity, just in terms of the way like people act, where they'll be so offended by something you said, they'll write paragraphs. They're analyzing you. It's really interesting how, like, a person who on any objective front is not significant can get this little tiny group of people, it could be 10, 20, who just blow them up to these epic proportions because of how obsessed they get with that person. But yeah, I don't I always like cringe a little bit when I see those, like, those types of reassuring comments where you have people who are like, "Oh, if you just keep doing this, you'll get larger, you'll get larger. Yeah, just keep trying, just keep trying." Said, "Look, I notice patterns. I notice when things play out in a similar manner over and over again." And I remember 2 years ago when I had this thing where I would try to make an edited video every week, and it was driving me nuts that, like, no matter how much harder you could tell you were working on this stupid website, you were still just like getting, maybe 100 views, maybe lower than that. And it was like, this is going nowhere. This is completely stagnant. This is a waste of my time. So I try to limit as edited stuff as much as I can now, because I don't think you should have to exude so much effort for something that is not only not guaranteed to you, but more often than not, because of past experiences, is signaled to not be something worth doing to such an extent. No, I still remember the one crazy person that came on my video or came on a stream, yeah, and was like, "Oh, because they tried to debate you on this romance nonsense." But I remember I had my best friend laughing because I told him about how this guy tried to say, when I asked him like, "Why are you so invested in the love life of a man you've never met?" Uh, I'm invested in your growth. That was his like that's word for word what his response was. And I remember I got rid of him at that point, because it's such an insult to me on just like like don't believe your lying eyes type of thing, like full Twilight Zone, behavior, to have somebody who left one comment on a video several years ago and then vanished, come back on a stream and write all this weird stuff, and then suddenly pretend to care so much when you can go and look in your own comment section and you don't see any comments from him. You don't see any tangible way in which he has helped you in any capacity, but that's someone who cares about your growth. That's why I said the people on this site, they really think everybody, the content creators, are just these really stupid people that they can just trick and convince into all of this stuff. And it's like you're not fooling me. Like, I've been on this website for too damn long to think to subscribe or believe in tricks, in things that are not something you can prove. Which is why when I was doing that stream, I said, "Hey, show us the video where you left a comment on." And his rebuttal was, "Oh, I didn't leave comments, so that doesn't mean I didn't watch." Like, no, but if you left comments, we could actually prove that you've watched the person that you claim to care so much about. Like, if you went and on the YouTube app, for what is it, the mobile version, they have a feature. You click on the channel's name of like whoever left a comment, and it shows you how many comments they've left in total on that channel. And there are multiple channels I like that I've left dozens of comments, hundreds of comments. Like I don't know. I just feel like it's so fake to sit here and never say something on the person's stuff. Because I always explain that if you don't leave comments, but you claim to like someone's videos, I don't understand you. Like, the person that you claim to enjoy has no idea that you're even watching. And it's like, at least with the bigger ones, I kind of get a little bit because they never respond to anybody anymore. Um, which is why I think it's so funny that you'll have so many channels that are like, "Oh, did you like this? Did you not like this? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below." And then, like, that they don't read the stuff. So but people leave comments because how big they are. But I guess what drives me nuts is that, like, you have these channels that are way smaller, right? Where if someone says something, it has a higher chance of being seen by the person because usually nobody says anything. And people just can't be bothered to engage with that person. They can't say anything. They can't go to a street, nothing. Just like, it's as if you don't even exist. I mean, like, it's that's why I said that I'm so done with this site, in the sense that, like, I post stuff and I try to give effort as far as like my opinion on something, but as far as believing in this idea that if I just keep going and trying and editing this and doing that, you'll see some type of like substantial um growth and or enlarging of your audience. Like, you just keep it up. I don't buy it. And it has nothing to do with how hard you work. It has nothing to do with any other factor pertaining to your actual trying, because it really is like being on this site and posting regularly and like trying to get like, views off of this stuff is the equivalent of throwing a bunch of darts at a wall and trying to see what sticks. So yeah, I don't know, it's so strange to me how like you see the same 5, 6, 7 people just getting larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. And you see yourself just in that little spot, just it stays the same every year. And you're not supposed to get mad, you're not supposed to get irritated, you're not supposed to get pissed, you're not supposed to get sick of it. You're just supposed to just sit there and take it and put up with it forever. And I don't quite understand why there is this expectation for someone who people claim to enjoy the stuff of, but they never can be bothered to actually leave comments and or engage with the stuff of to not be sick of this. No, it's really interesting just how, because I was thinking of doing this video and it was going to be about something I find truly screwed up, which is this idea that people have. Um, and I'm trying to think of a way to explain it without it sounding a certain way. But pretty much, I'm of the belief that there are certain things that should not be as hard as they are. Like, I don't think you should have to apply to 200, 300, 400 jobs just to get hired by a couple of places for a month before they get rid of you. I don't think you should have to talk to 100 women to get one to go on a date. And the fact that these are things that people not only know are not only know, or like some men have to do, but like expect you to do just on some basis of, if you want this, you work hard for. It just seems really screwed up to me, because it follows a theme I really don't like, which is that, because we talked about disparity before. We talked about how like I don't we don't we've never seen any chicks where they're expected to sit there year after year getting nothing from men and still be interested in wanting to do things with us, and just like how they don't have to put up with this arduous quest crap. um and it's like people sit here and they expect you to basically be on standby for a group of people who, for whatever reason, are believed by a very large segment of society to be entitled to your perpetual interest. Like, you're not, because like that's why it was always so interesting to me, just like the backlash that you'll get for talking about this stuff. There are people who truly believe that if you're a man, or if you are male, you're like this quasi slave for women. Like, you're not allowed to stop speaking to them. You're not allowed to just leave them alone. And it's like I always explain to people, that I stopped talking to them because nothing good was happening. Every time you go and speak to one of them, it's the same cycle, that you talk to them for weeks or months. If you say you like them, they say they're uninterested. If you talk about it on here, you get attacked by people who weren't even there, but who seemingly know more about what happened than you did. And then you meet another one, and the same cycle repeats itself. And I said, well, for the life of me, I can't see where I'm benefited by that. And it's like the only thing that comes out of this is me getting like annoyed for having my time wasted by these chicks, and being attacked by people who weren't there. Excuse me, by men who weren't there. Because like I'm not going to make it sound like it's a bunch of women doing this. At least that would make sense. But anyways, I really was just thinking about this a few days ago. I was like, no one thinks it's pathetic that, like, if you just want something, as because we deconstructed the date before. We said, hey, look, it's this thing where two people go out, and if they don't like it, never have to do it again. Just like it's really not this big, huge accomplishment that it's made out to be by weird people on the computer. And what I thought was so crazy is that you have individuals who really seem to believe that like you're supposed to do all of this extraneous garbage for the sake of just having a chance of being able to go on a date with some random woman. And they don't think anything's wrong with that. They don't think something's wrong with the premise that they're going to tell you that this group of people are not all the same, but then every time you go out and speak to one of them, conveniently they all do the same thing. They're not going to think about how wrong it is to try to tell someone that because of their undesirability to a group of people who in general have never accomplished anything, that they're like a lesser person. Because we had the one idiot that wrote the mediocre man thing. And it's like, when I think of a lot of this, like it's so funny how their behavior by itself is pretty lousy. Like just sitting there and wasting some guy's time because you want attention. I just think is really just it's a crappy thing to do. But then on top of it, they have this group of defenders. And sometimes the defenders don't call me names, but like the same thing, right? Of like refusing to ever criticize them. And they make it to where I like it's so interesting how because of these people who were like not involved with this at all, but felt like they had to give their opinion, which was always antagonistic to me. They made the group of people they were speaking in defense of even less appealing to me because it's one thing to have someone who turns down and you never speak to them again. It's another thing to have effectively created a foreseeable outcome where every time you talk to one of them and get an outcome that's not good, they turn you down, whatever, you know that there's going to be this group of people, it's like this little group who is going to take their side no matter what they did, who's going to blame you no matter what actually happened, because that's their default. They never flip the script. They always do the same thing. So it's interesting how people who aren't there, but because of how obnoxious they are, um, have made them as a group less appealing. I find that really interesting. We were talking about all the advice that they like to dish out. Oh, go to the gym. Oh, wear this, wear that, have this, own this. And like I said, man, I live in the real world. I see all types of guys that are with women and that don't have any of this crap. And I just think it's so sad that like you'll sit here again and just explain, your position. Like, hey, I think you shouldn't have to do all this stuff just to, you know, have something so minor as a date. And they actually, they don't listen to what you have to say. They just sit there and leave all these weird comments about the way somebody looks or something else that's irrelevant. And I said, like, I'll never get over how like people want you to feel bad about something like this. And we talked about this before, like the moral grandstanding, like the moral high ground, these people who are just like, you know, how dare you talk? And they don't say how dare, but like there's it's like a certain inference you can get from the type of stuff they write where they want to take the moral high ground of, how could you say these things about women, right? And they like to pretend you're talking about all of them or something. And I said, it's so crazy to me that because at least when people are doing the insulting stuff, they're just acting like children, just like little kids that are just being nasty because that's what they do when they're on the computer. But what's crazy to me is that you have these people that try to take a moral stance of like you should feel bad because the things you're saying. But when people come on my video or videos, I should say, and call me racial slurs, and any of the other different nasty off the wall stuff that they write, these people have nothing to say. And I'm not joking. I've never once seen a single one of these guys who defends these chicks go and say, hey, you know what? I don't agree with him. And I don't think what he's saying is correct. But you don't have to call him, the N word or tell him to go back to like it's, I'll never understand how you can have this group of people who want to instill this idea of them being in this righteous position of you shouldn't critique this group of people or talk about them in this particular way. But then when someone calls you things that can be considered um just wrong, like just nasty for the sake of being upset that you have an opinion that differs from theirs, they have nothing to say about it. Their mouths are filled with cement. And that's why I said I'm never gonna feel bad for the things that I've said on this website because nobody ever feels bad for the things that they say about me on this website. And none of the people who call themselves trying to like have some kind of higher moral stance ever can do the basic courtesy of saying, I don't agree with this person, but we don't need to call him these things that are, that are wrong. You'll never see them do that. Like, how hard is it? How hard is it to say, I don't agree with this person, but we don't have to call them any racial slurs, any terms that are based around your low opinion of them because of their ethnicity? And it's like when I did the My Unpopular Color video, that was after years of having these like weird antagonistic comments and noticing how because every year we get several of these guys, right? The ones that defend these chicks no matter what, that analyze me and stuff like that. It's like, how is it that it like they never in because it hasn't just been like 5 or 10 of them. It's been, at least several dozen, I'd say, right? Of these different guys that leave the comments where they're like, you should do this and da da da. Da. It's like, why is it that none of them ever can bring themselves to say we should not be antagonizing this person for things they cannot control, like their ethnicity? I've never seen a single one of them do that. And like I said, these are the same bastards who want you to believe that you are doing something wrong if you criticize women. Like if you come on a video and you say, "Hey, look, I don't like the way I was treated by them as a collective and that's why I stopped speaking to them. If you want to talk to them, whatever, I don't care, it's your life." They can't bring themselves to say anything in defense of you because the only people they care about coddling and trying to like, I guess, steer the antagonism off are women. So let it be known that if you don't have a triangle, they don't care about you or things that are said. And that's really disturbing. Like there have been plenty of people I have sympathized with that are men that like, just it didn't take anything at all for me to say this is screwed up. Like no one thinks there's something wrong with the idea that because of your gender, you are going to have some segment of guys because that's usually and there's some chicks as well, but they're not as vocal and like their disdain. You're going to have some segment of other men who are going to be completely fine with whatever way you are treated. If people come to your video and leave threats, right, or again attack you over your ethnicity or some other thing you can't control, it doesn't bother them. Like no one thinks there's something wrong with that you're just because of your gender, people are allowed to say whatever they want about you, and this group of guys who calls themselves taking this morally righteous stance can't be bothered to say anything in your defense. And again, it's like I know the internet. I know that people say nasty things. I know that people, but it's like I can't imagine a scenario where I'm trying to tell you that you're wrong for speaking about women in general in a demeaning way or in some way that is not positive. But then when people say all of this nasty, gross stuff to you, my lips are completely sealed. Nothing to say because I know that they've seen it. It gets written way too often for them to have never noticed it. They just don't care. because the only people they care about actually sticking up for in any capacity always have to have a triangle. If you don't have one of those, you might as well not even breathe. No, I see a Akatsuki merchant. I just didn't feel like stopping my monologue to say good morning back. But it really drives me crazy because I think it shouldn't it should it really doesn't take that much to just say I don't agree with someone, but we don't have to respond to them in this manner. It's really not hard at all to be able to just tell people to stop or just be consistent. Like I just it's that's what I said. I'm so tired of all the hypocrisy and fake garbage that gets thrown out by these people. Yeah, I don't know. It's really sad that like there's so much blatant hypocrisy. Like it's just constantly apparent. Told you I really try to just do my thing on this site, but it's really annoying that I don't know, all the like fake positivity really just drives me crazy because it's one of those things where people it's like they're using their wishful thinking and they're trying to assert it as this like faith that you are going to have. But I said you look at any type of analytic, this stuff is going nowhere. And like I said, I've really agonized over like what causes someone to just not grow or to grow on this site. And I accepted that, in my case, I just peaked. Like you will never see any act. That's why I don't even care about like banning people or like talking about someone who's large because it really is like this is as good as it gets. You do a stream, you have a couple of people show up. You do a video, you might get maybe a three-digit number, but that's about it. And I'm not going to delude myself with some fantasy of like I'm gonna put up this video that's like really well edited and with great audio, and then people will like it and start sharing it because people have had the chance to do that before and they don't. And like that's why I say I realize that no matter to what extent you actually work on this stuff, you're not going to see any vindication for it. I mean, already YouTube shows that consistently. Like you do a stream, and because you use some light profanity, or because you use some term that might be considered crass, like not a swear word, but just like something they don't want you to say, they'll demonetize you for it. So now you might get one ad every like 30 times somebody plays a video, and stuff like that is purposely done as to limit the amount of support that you get on that site. Like to purposely limit how much actual stuff you can make off of here. That's a really nice pyramid scheme, huh? Where if you do a video and you use either light profanity or you say a term that this site might not like, because there's a lot of stuff that can get you in trouble if you when you're doing a stream. You'll get demonetized, which is like in a lot of cases the only consistent revenue you even get from this site or from any website. And then you're just supposed to put up with it. Better luck next time. And what drives me crazy is that, and I always have to explain this to people, a lot of these bigger channels, they're not like, because people are like, oh, you just don't get enough views. Like, no, it's not even about views. Like, you can have a channel with, let's say, 200,000 subs, right? And they do a video that gets maybe like 20,000, 10,000, which is really not that much for a channel that's as large as they are. Like, that's like a tenth of people or a fifth of people watching, compared to what the number should be. But my point is, they'll do a video and it'll get like some number that's considered okay by like great by my standards, but just like whatever by their standards, and they'll get paid for the video both because of the the ad revenue and because of sponsorships, because of Patreon. Like, these people have 900 different ways to get to make money off of these damn things. So it's really funny to me when like they sit here and they act like, even, I mean, I've even said this before, you could have a video that gets 100,000 views and you still, like, unless you're doing that every single time you upload something, um, it still isn't really gonna be that much. And the other problem is, a lot of stuff, takes, how do I explain it? It's kinda like this. If you were to try and upload every like I said, people just don't understand the behind the scenes machinations, because in reality, most people have never tried to do a channel. They've never actually made their own stuff, so they don't get it. I mean, this reminds me of that woman who was surprised that it took a commentator, not a studio, a commentator, 5 years to make a movie. And I was thinking to myself, "Bimbo, this guy had to fly to another city. He had to write a script. He had to get all the people together." This, like, I'll never understand. Like, people truly think that if you want to make something, it could be a video, it could be just anything that requires a script and editing. They really believe you can just snap your fingers and here's the video. Seriously, like, that's one of the biggest faults that people just have as a collective group, this complete inability to accept the idea that making anything, even if it's not of the quality that you like sometimes people don't like a video that someone made where they have a script or whatnot, it still requires some excessive level of effort. No, they don't understand it's not even just like making a movie. Anytime you make something that requires a script and editing, depending on its length and the other features involved, it could take months or years. Like, I that's why I told you that, like, these people, because they've never done anything themselves, how do I explain it? Because they've never done anything themselves that could be considered beyond surface level employment, like, you work at this place and you do the tasks that they ask you to, because they've never actually undergone some large scale creative efforts. They have no idea what it's like to be in the hot seat, what it's like to um want to make something where you have to do the visuals, where you have to edit it, where you have to write a script. They've never done anything like that. The closest they've come to having to write something and actually care about what's in it or be attached to it, maybe like a school paper or something, but like of their own volition, this project that you want to see go from being an idea in your head to being this thing on a screen, they've never done anything like that. Which again, not everybody has to do, but I always explain that, like, um, I don't like how to, people not knowing how to do something or not having done something would be fine if people showed a little bit of empathy. Like, I've never, for example, composed music, but I know that making music is not easy. I mean, between all the different notes that you have to memorize, and it's just in general, it's not simple, especially with singing, where you're trying to like get the voice to line up with the beat, stuff like that. Even if I've never done it, it's still is something that I can accept the difficulty of. But with these people, they really live in this little like bubble where they just have these surface level analysis of things. Oh, he announced the movie 5 years ago and it took him this long to make. It's like, what do you expect? This is one man. This isn't a studio. And even they take a long time to make stuff sometimes. Look at Avatar, for example. Not the last Airbender, the blue people. I mean, look, some people when they want to make something, it could take them a year, it could take them 3 years, it could take them 10 years. You don't like you that's why I said like people just they when they've never made something, they really do expect you to just snap your fingers and have it finished. I have stuff I haven't even finished, like I haven't even made, and it would still take a long time to do. Like if I do a documentary, first, you have to pick who it is, which is not easy because there's a bunch of people I like and think should be discussed in some kind of edited video format. Then you have to write a script, which requires research because sometimes I'll actually get a book and go through the whole thing, which is like sometimes several hundred pages. Usually it's several hundred pages at least. You have to figure out what parts to highlight, where to insert clips. Like this stuff is not as simple as these douchebags make it sound. But like I said, since they don't make anything, they think you can just pull this movie or this show or whatever out of your backside in no time. God, like I just can't believe they have no ability to empathize or to sympathize with the cause of a creator. They just it's not in them to do that. It took him 5 years to make a movie. It's like, what the hell did you expect? God, like so I said people just they have no idea how hard some stuff is. They really don't. If they're not doing it themselves, everything just seems easy to them. Oh yeah, you just make a movie. You just create it. You just snap your fingers and here's this big script. What's crazy is there's a lot of films that have a script that let's say gets finished in like a month or some other short amount of time. And then, the movie still takes a while to start filming because the director doesn't like the first script or the second one or the third one. They have revisions. But that's what I think is, like, insane that people don't understand all it's just I don't know, it just gets on my nerves. But like I said, the real reason for that is because most people have no idea what it's like to actually make something. So they just can't empathize. Yep, some people can't see outside of their narrow views of reality. Yeah, because they've never done anything like this. So they think you can just snap your fingers and have the whole thing finished. I'll never forget when I was about maybe I think 14, 15, 16. And this is before I had like there was a period when I was like in early high school where I just didn't have a computer, like a consistent computer that I could, that was like mine. And, I went over somebody's house to use theirs, and this person asked me if because I was, like, already back then, I was flirting with the idea of, like, making a show, like a cartoon where you draw everything out, and this person asked me, "Oh, did you finish your movie, your thing?" It's like, "Do you" d and I said to them, "Do you realize how insane it would be for to think that I could finish drawing an entire" because it wasn't a movie, it was a show, but it's like, even 1 episode, there's no way in hell I can finish drawing that whole thing in 2 days, let alone editing it and, sticking the it was like this like, I really turned and looked at them like they were insane. You really think because I sat in front of a computer for 2 days, that was enough to finish this major, massive beast project of a video? Are you crazy? That's why I said when people have never made something, they don't understand the time it takes to make anything. They think you can just snap your fingers and there you go. So I said it's really annoying. No, I saw Jedi Master. I haven't seen him in a long time. He decided to make a reappearance. He decided to show back up. He reappeared. He decided to come out of hiding. Ever since the Jedi Temple got destroyed, he's been in seclusion. We haven't seen him since the fall of of Dragaba. He chucked his green lightsaber into the far reaches of space and never looked back. Or maybe he's been working, he's trying to get that Killmonger spinoff off the ground. Who knows? It's always a mystery what people are doing when you don't see them. Oh man. No, that's a video I really want to do where it's just like all the different things that people like, just how screwed up stuff is in general. Oh, you want a job? Don't worry. All you have to do is just apply to 200 places. I don't know. I've said before that stuff is just screwed up in terms of the way it's like set up. Like just on a fundamental level, there's something wrong with a lot of issues. Like I said before that someone who goes to school to animate shouldn't be working as a fry cook. Like it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I've said before that like I always thought there were so many like opportunities that just aren't available to people. Yep, working as illustrator and still looking for better jobs, which is such a hassle. It's not even just that. It's like if you edit stuff, that already shows, because most people like even if they do a video, they don't actually edit it. They don't, like chop up the clips and make one part louder or have lesser volume. So even if you just do something like that, you're still doing a thing that is considered a talent. Not everybody can do that. And it's really crazy how even when you have that skill as well, you still don't have any jobs out there. Like, you don't think it's crazy that like you can edit stuff, you can edit videos, you can change the colors, you can change the volume, you can flip things around, and you don't you there's no employment opportunities for that. Because you know that all these different companies, they make commercials where the stuff is chopped up, they film it, and then somebody edits it, right? So you don't think it's nuts that like there's no job out there for someone that can edit or someone that can write or draw. Like I don't know, just it seems really weird to me that you can really have any possible talent and still get no employment opportunities. I could sing like a professional artist and I would still be having to drive some stupid truck all day long. Um, I don't know. It just seems like there should be like more things that those talents would allow you to be able to use them for, but I don't know. Like I always thought there's something really wrong about a person knowing how to do things and not being able to like profit off of that in any way. Like we have such a saturated um, very limited market of opportunities to where even if you know how to do something that most others don't know how to do, or you do something that let's say you can objectively prove would be useful to various companies, you're just never up for consideration to be used for these types of things. Like I sat back and I realized I could draw, with the greatest proficiency out of anyone in my city. Like I'm not talking about like I'm one of the best artists in the world or no crazy egotistical stuff like that, but just like I would say my artistic skills are better than average. I believe that especially if I draw by hand. And it's like you'll never have any place that wants you to do a design for them. You never have any place that wants you to make a flyer, like nothing. Just you're just constantly devoid of any opportunity. And I think something is wrong with that. So that's why I said I really when people do their, oh, you should feel bad because you don't have it. I always just think to myself, like, There are so many people that don't have jobs that like are in my area. Like if I go to downtown and I go and look at all those tent cities and homeless people, it's like, you really want me to feel bad about something that they're damn near doing to everybody? You know, it's just it's nuts. Like I just I think something's really wrong with that whole setup. Imagine if a Kotsky merchant knew how to paint, and instead of him getting hired as maybe like a, you know, for some kind of artistic position where he can color stuff. And because you know, with coloring, that's also a talent that people have where they can like make shading, right? Where stuff is like darker on one side, lighter on the other to show that someone's, you know, in some dark room that's like dimly lit. Or if it's like really bright, the light, like the lighting on them is to where in the front it's really light, but in the sides it's darker, you know, stuff like that. He would never get he would be guaranteed to almost never get any career opportunities based off of that talent, even if it's something that again most people don't know how to do because like they don't care. Like just that's why I said society encourages people to be different, and that's why I tell you that like it's something that I think is wrong. It encourages people to be different and to have talents and to like find out who they are, etc., etc. But then every time you have things that make you unique from other people, you can't actually capitalize on it. Like, I mean, again, I know a guy with a degree in animation who is like got out and there's still like nothing. There's no positions lined up for him. And that's crazy, like, he got like, with the stuff I do, I don't have it I'm not formally educated in, okay, but, like, he can prove he was educated in this stuff, and there's nothing there for him. And that's why I said, like, what's the point of even applying to these places if you're just constantly going to get the same, results, you know? Like, it's I don't know, it's just it's really frustrating. And I do think there's something wrong with the prospect of like, oh, it's so great that you can edit videos. Time to only get $1 a year off of those when you get monetized. So I said you can have any talent and you still won't get any like vindication for it. So the person who knows how to draw better than everyone else in their community, neighborhood, city, they're expected to be content working as a delivery guy. You know, it's just I think something's really wrong with that. And that's why it always annoys me when you have these stupid people that are like, "Oh, just start your own business. Just start your own business. Just start your own business." You know, they say it like it's so easy to just create these conditions for you to, you know, I don't know. It's just it's really obnoxious because it goes back to this thing of how the core problem is the idea that if you have a talent, there's no position, like actual position you can apply to capitalize or, you know, get something out of having this talent that you developed. And their response to that is not to say, "Oh yeah, we should criticize a system that tells people to have talents and then like they can't be rewarded for it because there's no jobs that are available for it." Oh no, just start your own business. I'm so tired of that stupid every time somebody says that, I just roll my eyes. The arts pertaining to intellectual property creation is an arduous read, but it has been done. Dr. Seuss, George Lucas, Disney, etc. But times are different now, and there's an oversaturation of content. You know that what I guess what I'm trying to convey here is that you go back to the 70s, the 80s, there were films that were made where people who did not have who were not famous, who were not well known, they would go to a studio, they'd pitch their idea, an investor would give them some money and then they would make it, and then, you know, sometimes it would be a hit, sometimes it would be a flop. But the point I'm making is they were given opportunities to be something bigger than what they currently were. And as much as people like to claim the internet has helped it has made it easier for someone to be famous or to have chances, I think the reverse is true. Because every time I hear a story of, oh yeah, I was this guy that was living out of his car or in some three-person little tiny rinky-dink apartment, but then I had this idea for this show or this movie, and the studio picked it up and they gave me a chance, and like you don't see that anymore. You really don't. And like a lot of the stuff that gets picked up from the internet, if it airs on TV, gets canceled after like one season. So, I'm just saying that you might think, not you in particular, but just in general, people might convince themselves it's easier to be famous now than it was 40 years ago. But back then, making like certain stuff was simpler, or excuse me, was more accessible because studios were more willing to give people a chance. Now they're these billion-dollar industries, and if you come up to them and you say, "Hey, I got this idea for a movie, it'll cost you maybe 1,000,000, and you've got 1,000,000,000, so you can give me, a little small, um, funds to pay for this," they'll laugh at you. They'll go, we're $1 billion studio. Why do we need to borrow an idea from you?" Seriously, like I truly believe that in a way, it's harder to actually get your idea out there than it was like 40 years ago. Because back in those early decades of science fiction, and like when studios were like more willing to take risk with ideas, right? They would they were receptive in ways that they're not now because they have no financial reason to. You can't expect billion-dollar studios to, throw a regular person like yourself a bone, no matter how good your idea is, especially when they know that they can put out garbage and still, make a profit back because people will watch anything. I mean, just to give you an example, I can think of multiple movies that were directed by people who were in their 20s. And they got those jobs not because their dad was famous or, you know, anything relating to like some kind of nepotism. They got it because they were considered talented, or just all I'm getting at is like I can I truly believe that in the last 10, 20 years, there are way less opportunities to actually break out in some significant way. Like I truly believe talent by itself just isn't enough at this point. If people don't watch, if studios don't give you a chance. And I always explain to people that like it's so funny how everyone always paints this idea that if you have a scenario or a situation that you find that you're like unsatisfied with, it's your fault that things are the way they are. And I said, I'll never understand how like you can take a guy who says he wants a job, and he doesn't just say that. He goes out and he applies every year, 30 places, 70 places, 100 places. And every time he gets a job, he does all the duties that they tell him to do. If he doesn't do something correctly, it's because he's never done this type of work before. And these places, because they don't care about him as a person, whether he lives or dies, because that's just how companies are. They treat their workers like slaves. They throw him out like a piece of garbage, and then he's right back to the same old stick of having to keep on applying and applying and applying. And you look at this person who did everything in his foreseeable power to not only get the job but to also try to perform the duties to a level that the place was satisfied with. And you stick a finger in his face and say, "You're the reason you're unemployed. You don't want to work, person that always applies for jobs and basically accepts every single one that hires him. You don't want to work." And the guy that you're saying this to is looking at you like you're in the damn twilight zone. He's like, "What are you talking about?" But people do this with everything. Like, I don't know what Jedi's romantic views are, but I'll never get over the insanity of telling a guy who asked out dozens of chicks, "Oh yeah, you don't want to date anybody. You're just doing this for fun, for show and tell." Like, it will never stop being weird to me that you have people who have convinced themselves if someone gets a result that they're not content with, they don't like, but at the same time, they did everything in their power to try and, get the reverse of it. Oh, it's their fault. They're the reason they got this result. We're not gonna acknowledge the fact that with anything you do that requires, someone else's consent, they have to consent to it. Like, Jedi could write the best screenplay since Star Wars 1977, this, like, revolutionary idea that no one's ever had before. And if I, as the studio head, read a piece of this script and I go, this is boring. I'm not interested. Well, then all of his hard work just, as far as like him wanting to work with me, just went out the window. And it's not because he made a mistake. I just wasn't interested. So I said it's like they always blame the person who wants something and doesn't get it, and they never can say, hey, you know what, that person didn't get what they want, but they tried. They gave a whole bunch of effort, even past the point where it was reasonably expected of them to care. Because, like I said, they have the just world fallacy. Anything that happens to you that you don't want to see happen, to where you've even tried to prevent it, it's your fault. So it's your fault you're not famous. It's your fault that you're unemployed. It's your fault. We're always going to leave out the external factors of these places. I mean, I think I mentioned before, I applied to a bakery like 2 years ago, and they had 4 positions available. And when I got to the interview, the interviewer, or I guess the manager, whoever he was, told me they had 40 people, 40 people applying for 4 jobs. So that's about 10 people on average for each. And I didn't say this to him, but it's like if I knew that, I wouldn't have even applied. For what? I'm not about to sit here and you know be in competition with damn near w- over what is that, like 3 dozen people for a little, for like several jobs. They'll probably get rid of you the first chance they get. I've deleted the concept of romance from my mind since my early 20s. That ship has sink deep in the ocean after trying to find land and failed. Well, I was just saying I didn't know what your perspective was, because people, excuse me, men like to get angry at me for mine. So I didn't want to offend you. Akatsuki Merchant says dating is a waste of time. I prefer being alone because less people means less problems. Yeah, it's all I'm conveying to you is that you'll be surprised how much, and I know why people do it. They want to feel better, right? Oh, you didn't get 1,000 views on your video. Well, your video just wasn't really good. I mean, you didn't edit it. You did. Oh, you did edit your video. Well, your video just wasn't good. It's always the fault of the person who gets the undesired result every time. I told you that woman stuff really, like, I guess what I'm always perplexed by is that we've gotten to a point where when people respond to my perspective on that, they don't actually respond to my perspective on that. They like argue with titles and thumbnails and like giving all their different stupid advice. And I just said to myself, I'll never understand how you can have a situation where you expect the guy to always start things, to always make the move of like saying, "Hey, I'm interested in you," and then and he always gets the same result. The woman says she's not interested, doesn't reciprocate, whatever, and then he goes online, if he mentions it, he gets called out of his name, he gets attacked, and then if he meets another woman, the same cycle repeats itself. And you're surprised that he one day sat back and he said, "You know what? This is stupid. I'm tired of this." And just like washed his hands with them. Like that shocks them that you would even think you have the right to just be done with it. Okay, I already read it. But I don't know, just I'll never get over how insane it is that they really think if you're a man You're supposed to sit here with this group of people who do the same stupid thing every year of wasting your time, and never get sick of it. And I was even thinking of doing a video where we were going to talk about how I've actually been noticing in like the last 4 years how in subtle ways chicks are getting worse. Like they're doing things that are even more like nuts. We were talking about how one of the things I noticed is that you have a lot of chicks, for example, who refuse to have a like a phone call, like lets you hear their voice. And this is something that I'm telling you, I didn't see any instances because I like back when I was in high school, this is like 2015, 16. I used to speak to chicks on like Reddit, for example. And generally speaking, they'd have Skype and they'd say, hey, I'll add you on there, we'll speak later. I never saw any of them do this thing now that they do where they want you to talk to them for weeks, months without hearing their voice until 4 years ago. And it's been, I can name at least maybe five different instances where that happened, where one of them is like, I don't really like to speak voice to voice. And I'm like, then there's no point in this continuing because I swear to you, I've never seen either friends, a couple, whoever, where they never heard each other's voice. I've never seen a close relationship where they just never heard each other's voice. That's never happened in the history of like internet interactions or whatever you want to call it. It's like it's just weird. And again, like I say chicks because all the men I speak to, they're fine with talking, whether it's typing stuff, speaking voice to voice. Like it's only chicks that do this weird thing where they're like, and I guess what drives me crazy is some of these bastards are they think they're so clever that they'll actually say to you, "Oh, I maybe I'll do it one day. I just don't feel comfortable." And then that day never comes. You can talk to one of them from October to June or July, and they'll still be sitting there refusing to let you speak to them voice to voice. And I think that's insane. Who does that? But chicks do. And again, like we go back because this whole saga started. It was like 2011. I never saw any of them do this before 4 years ago, and now it seems like every year, as I've spoken to because like I don't even have romantic stuff with them anymore. It's always me just trying to be platonic, and they think you want because they have massive egos, so they think every man that speaks to them wants to be their boyfriend. But like I'm noticing more and more this recurring pattern of them refusing to speak voice to voice. And it's really weird. One thing that perplexes me is that other oh, please don't start that stuff. I don't feel like we get mad for not wanting to be called. Um, when I was a kid, so like maybe 8th grade, I think I there was like a little saga, a little like mini arc where I had a classmate who didn't like being called the N-word. I didn't like it either. Um, And back then, I used to be like, "Hey, I don't like being called," just like as a like discretionary thing. Now I usually just don't say anything because I like most of the people that call me that stuff are people I only see one time or like there's a reason why I don't talk to them. But I've said before, I am not ashamed of my ethnicity, but I am ashamed of being part of the only ethnic group in human history that uses a racial slur as a term of endearment. And make of that what you will. And that doesn't mean that, I think all music that has the N-word in it should be deleted or like all the movies that have it because that's entertainment. Entertainment can have all types of different words in there that you might find offensive, but it has a reason for being there. But like, I can watch a movie where they call white people a certain slur that starts with a C, and I don't call any of them that. So, I'm just saying, like, you don't even if there's entertainment that has that word in there, which there certainly is, you don't have to say it yourself. Oh man, the only ethnic group in human history. I guess what drives me crazy about it is that they'll call each other this over and over every single day. But then if someone who's, what's really interesting when it comes to like usage of the N word by people who are of other races is that it really is a mixed opinion thing where some are okay with it and others are not. And I said, like, we don't even have to have a debate. If everyone just stops using this stupid word, then you're not going to have to even worry about somebody else using it. Because that's a trap they created for themselves where, people who were of different races saw you calling each other this over and over and over again. And they were like, okay, well, I guess it's okay. And then some of you said it was, and some of you said it wasn't. So like I said, I'm tired of it. As a black male, I feel the exact same way, and I'm so tired of black stereotypes. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. Oh, we already torched BLM years ago, where I was like, so if I can't find a job, don't get hired, can't support myself, take care of myself. Nobody cares. Nobody protests. If I can't make a show or some other project I've been dreaming about for years and fulfill this like once I have, nobody cares. Nobody protests. Um, but if I get shot by a police officer, now suddenly there's this big, huge. So I said, man, like the biggest problem for me with BLM is that there are so many issues that affect black people that just like no one ever talks about at all. Like all of these underage and just unprepared pregnancies and Chicago and stuff like that. It's like and it's what's crazy is that you have all this stuff that goes on every single year that these people say nothing about. But then when there's a shooting every couple of months, they all come out with their protests on. I don't know. It's just I think the whole thing is tacky. And the problem is if you criticize them for ignoring one thing, they're gonna say that you're trying to divert attention. It's like, no, I just want a group that has that name to do things that show that the lives of black people matter, but whatever. All it does is reinforce stereotypes. I'm not ashamed to be, but I'm ashamed of, yeah, pretty much. It's not even really a community. They're like it's just a bunch of people who are of the same race, but as far as like actually helping each other and stuff, almost non-existent, man. Like you can't be a community when you just destroy each other, and I don't know. It just it it's it's really sad to see an ethnic group that you genuinely want the best for continuously sabotage itself. And then it seems like every time you tell like specific people you shouldn't be doing this, you get accused of like being having some kind of agenda. And it's like, I'll never understand how you can have people who will get mad at you for saying, I don't want black people to kill each other. Like it's nuts to me. I don't want them to have kids they can't afford. But you're considered like I don't know. It's just it's a really bizarre thing to me. They only care about when they can hate monger against. Yeah, pretty much. Mm. Dude, I'm telling you, like, I didn't even want to turn this into a political thing, but like, so many of these commentators, and Akatsuki Merchant will probably will disagree with me, but like, I've always like maintained the view that these commentators are two halves of the same coin. Like the liberal ones will say, they act this way because of the legacy of slavery and stuff like that, and then the conservatives will say that the welfare system has caused it. And it's like I guess what I always think is crazy is that the like how do I explain this? If I decided tomorrow to fornicate with some woman and she, gets knocked up, I'm not married to her. I didn't use protection. That's a conscious choice I made to mess up my own life. And it's like, why is it that you'll have a government program get blamed for me being an idiot? Oh, it's an incentive. It's like, yeah, but you like, I just think it's funny that the same group who talks about self responsibility will sudden like they'll tell you, for example, your fault that you don't have this, your fault you don't have that. But then if you bang a woman and have some kid that neither of you can take care of, oh, don't worry, poor, stupid person. You did this because of this program that was made 30 years before you were born. Yeah. You don't think that's crazy? Because I always said, like, one of the things that one of the few reasons I even kept asking out chicks was just to, like, actually have a family, right? Where, two people work together to have funds so that when they have a kid, they can actually take care of it. And it's like they really believe that if you ever yeah, I hate when people do I'm just telling you, man, like, it's so crazy that the same group of people who talks about, like, self-responsibility, if they can, like, because their enemy they just hate any kind of government assistance. Like, if I said I want a mandatory excuse me, a mandatory jobs program where, the government will give you a job if you want one, they would say I'm looking for a handout, even though I would still have to work to like I'm literally asking them to to guarantee me a job so I can take care of myself. But anyways, their enemy is any government assistance whatsoever, right? So they will quickly backpedal on their view of, oh, the the you have to take responsibility for the things you do. They go from that to going, oh no, it's okay, idiot person who did this stupid thing. You did this because of this program. It wasn't your fault. If this program wasn't here, you wouldn't do this. That's dude. That's literally like saying if car insurance didn't exist, I would be like a better driver. Like I would just never crash my car. You know what I mean? Like certain stuff happens. Unfortunately, there are people who screw without protection and have kids they can't afford. And I think that's more of a societal thing. Like, I just think in general, people should be more condemning of people that like. I think screwing up a kid's life is one of the worst things you can do. So I do believe that, like, if people in general were more critical and were like, "Hey, this is disgusting. This is blasphemous." You and your mom, like basically, if they were more condemning and showing that it wasn't acceptable to just do this single parent can't take care of your kid thing, I think people would be less likely to do it because people are influenced by their environment. I mean, we talked about this on another stream. It's like you have a lot of people. Well, I'll read what Kotsky Merchant wrote. It's like those people who think that a villain is justified in committing atrocities because they were abused as kids. If you look at villains' backstory and come to the conclusion that they're justified, you miss the entire point, and it's very telling about your own moral convictions. Sure, but in my belief, a lot of those conservatives that say the stuff about how, oh, these black people that have kids they can't afford and and kill each other, that's because of welfare. I'm like, man, there are like I'll just never understand how you can blame a government program for a person choosing to fire rounds into the skull or some other vital body part of another human being. Especially when you consider that most people on welfare are white, but that's a little secret they like to. So I'm not even joking. I've asked like so many different chicks, do you at some point want to get married, like just in general? And they say no. And it's like they're the reason that this stupid crap is happening. Like, how do you take this guy who says he wants to be married with a family and say, oh yes, you are part of this group of this generation of people that don't want to, actually take care of themselves. Like it's so insane. Hey, Akatsuki merchant, if you end up getting assaulted by someone of your same ethnicity, it's because of welfare. It wasn't because they, as an individual, consciously chose to do something violent to you, but it was this evil government program. God, man, I just think it's so sad that like we have like people who actually believe this stuff. And again, the problem I have with them is they're the same ones who tell you to take responsibility, but the first instance where they can find a way to blame a program they don't like, they will use all kind of backwards logic to do it. Like, I just think it's really insane. God, I don't know. I just whatever. It's just so sad that like people have basically created this stereotype of blacks as like this group that steal things and have kids they can't afford, and all this other garbage, right? And then you have certain people who in that in the community who will say, hey, stop doing this. um don't go down this path. I don't want to see you go down this path. And people will then point the finger at you and say that like you're part of the problem. Like you're not even it it's just it's the most backwards logic ever. That's why I said I just gave up on even trying to have a dialogue about this stuff with people, because every time you do, or every time I would rather, I would feel very frustrated because they don't come from a position of two individuals trying to talk about something in a sophisticated manner. Like I said before, there are plenty of debates on YouTube where people just talk respectfully. Every time it's like they get in front of some crowd and they act like animals. They're just like jumping around and, what do you think of this? Huh, huh?" Just like I don't feel and see the where this is beneficial. I just feel like some people shouldn't be allowed to engage with certain media because they're too dumb to understand the underlying message in the shows they watch. They get caught up in spectacle. Yeah, but again, it's like that's on them. I mean, if I do a movie where we show, I'm trying to think of a scenario. Let's say a couple that has a kid they can't take care of, and we clearly show it to be a bad thing. We clearly show it to be something that's affecting them in a negative manner because they're not, because like a lot of people who are able to survive usually have some support from other relatives. Um, and then someone goes out and they say, "Oh man, this character in this movie was really cool. I'm gonna go and get knocked up too." You can't blame the movie for them seeing that, especially when it was portrayed in a bad manner, you know, and be like, "Oh yeah, the film made them do this." Just like one of the worst shows of all time was, what was it, 16 and Pregnant? Because in my opinion, it glamorized the idea of having a kid at an age where no person would even be expected to reasonably be accommodating of them. And basically said, "Hey, you made this mistake. We'll put you on television. We'll show the world how stupid you are, but we'll also like make you seem to be of some intelligence or be worth listening to." I don't know. I just think the whole thing was so like I- there's something really wrong with a person being able to go on television because they had a kid they can't afford. Again, it's like think of all the people in this world that have talents, that can draw stuff, that can write, that can sing. They never make it on television. But some idiots that allowed an unprotected banana to go inside of her is like who we choose to prop up and dedicate a season to or some episodes to. Like I just think that's just insane, man. But I feel the same way about these family channels. Like you have channels where people like I'm not joking. There are individuals who are literally having kids so that they can come on YouTube and go, "Oh, look at my baby throwing his stroller around," and get people to watch and get views off of that. They have like literally, there are chicks and men as well. There are people on this website who are so talentless that the only thing they can do to get attention is to have a bunch like to have kids and stick a camera in front of their face from the time they're 2 or 3 or 4 years old. Like when I talk to people about anime, they'll give me the most hilarious bad interpretation of the events in the show. Well, I already told you there's a bunch of people that watch that stuff that don't care about anything beyond surface level crap. Like they really believe a character is only good if they're the strongest or if they've like defeated the main villain. They have this extremely limited perspective in terms of what constitutes a good story. That's why I told you that there's a lot of fans of that stuff that only care about transformations and all the rest of this other hair color changing and eye color changing and bodies changing. It's just like it's really sad that the communities are like that. That's why I said with most communities for this stuff I like, I don't talk to them because just the things that they prioritize and think are cool or good, I disagree with in ways that I don't think are salvageable. I mean, like just like I'm saying that we have such different views on this same show in terms of where we want it to go, our movie or manga, whatever, that it's not even worth discussing it because we're just going to end up disagreeing to such an extent that it would not provide a fruitful discussion. Mm. Yeah, I try to stay out of any of these communities. Because, like I said, fans of stuff will be able to justify anything. I mean, look at that one fighting game where half the roster is DLC. It's like, oh yeah, it's okay that you spend $60 to get the game and then another like 120 to get all the characters. Yeah, totally. Oh, people definitely idolize villains. I mean, I told you about the one dumb broad that said she was just there to see the killer do his thing. And it's so weird too, because it's like the people that write that stuff, like that actually make a lot of those different either it's a horror film or like, something where like the villain is a big part of it. They admit the bad guy's the bad guy. I saw a review about maybe a few months ago where somebody called a slasher killer their hero. And they even admitted that like that makes them look weird. And it's like, what why would a person like the thing is, as much as I do think people rely a little too much on fiction, I can understand where like there's a protagonist in a manga or a movie or a show and like you connect with them and maybe like I can that makes sense to me, even if it's something that I don't necessarily like. I think some people take too far. So it's like, what how can a villain, a person who kills people just because they can, be your hero? So I said it's stupid, man. Like, people always talk about, oh, don't people just have different opinions? Like, guys, if you can look at, because like I said, there are plenty of villain characters I like in different stories. I really like Vader, for example, but I would never call someone who murders a bunch of innocent people my hero. Like, what? Imagine being a writer and you write this compelling villain, and the only thing your audience takes away from it is I want to see the villain do their thing. But even if the villain wasn't compelling, it's like you write this and you specifically are writing them as the antagonist. The good guys are likable. They're doing something where you want to see them succeed because they're not douchebags. They're nice people. And you just support the villain because whatever. I saw a person who said that they supported. I'm trying to remember what it like. All I'm getting at is no matter what the stakes are, the consequences are, you have these like weird people. And I guess I'm more bothered by it now because back when I was a kid, the concept of someone rooting for an antagonist who wants to kill innocent people or do something that's going to like destroy thousands of lives or hundreds of like that always just seemed like there's no way people actually believe that. But there like you have these people who watch this stuff and they have these really warped perspectives where they only care or like they want the bad guy to succeed when if the bad guy gets their way they're going to do something evil or awful to others for no reason. That's why I said like these villains are not compelling and they'll still get supporters from these like these weird warped fangirl-esque people. It's weird. I'm not even joking. Ever since I read that thing that she wrote, honestly, it's the fault of writers why villains nowadays have been idolized. Well, yeah, but like here's my thing, right? I don't what I like whenever you release something and it's seen by thousands of people, millions of people, there's going to be all kinds of interpretations to it. That's just a thing that's going to happen if your story gets viewed and watched by people. Um So if you make a story where you've got a villain who's a bad guy, there's nothing nice about them, there's nothing good about them. It's and you portray them as being just a straight up fiend. It's not your fault if some crazy, deluded, psychotic, mentally disturbed woman who's probably sexually repressed is like, I want them to succeed. I want them to win. I want them to destroy and kill all the main characters because I think they're so hot. Like it's not your fault if that delusion causes them to act that way. But let me read John Master Rowe. It's because they're twisted fantasies, which is complete nonsense. Sure, but I'm saying that if you write a story and you portray the villain as a bad guy, like awful person who's doing bad things, and some insane individual reads your story or watches your story and says, "Oh, I'm rooting for them." It's not your fault that that crazy person interpreted it the wrong way. It's kind of like if you make a movie and you have a scene where it's supposed to be sad because one of the characters just died, and it was like really abrupt and it was tragic and it was just like sacrifice and they were likable throughout the whole thing. And you have people in the comment section going, "Man, I cried and that was so sad." And then somebody's like, "I laughed so much because I'm supporting the killer." So it's not your fault if they interpreted it in a way that it wasn't meant to be interpreted. Like you made everyone look depressed as this person was laying on the ground passing away, and some crazy person thought it was funny. But it's not because you made it funny. It's just they in their mind thought this character dying was comedic. Let me see. Let's see where this is. I told you that they're like I really I don't like when writers get blamed for stuff that I think is not in their control because like I said, when you write a story, you can't help I explain this. If you write a story and you have a specific way it's supposed to be viewed based off of either the tone or the things other characters are saying, if someone else interprets that in like a way that's contrary to the way the story is portraying it, then that's their problem. So, for example, if I write a story where there's a woman who wants to kill some man that used to be her lover or that turned her down, whatever, some kind of like spurn lover type story, right? And everyone says there's something wrong with this woman. She's crazy. She's nuts. The guy says, "Hey, I used to like being friends with her, but she wants to do this thing that I think is insane." And then some crazy guy is like, "Oh, she's so hot though. Yeah, I totally want to see her just knife that girl." okay, well, the person who wants to see her just knife the protagonist is expressing a view that is opposite of what the writer intended by having everyone in the story say there's something wrong with this woman. And then you go and you're like, oh, I definitely want to see her succeed in her goal of killing the main character. It's like, yeah, you have a warped perspective. Yeah, you're right, but I'm saying there are certain mistakes writers make with their villains that can lead people to having those interpretations, such as being too sympathetic to the villain. Well, like I said, there are some antagonists where it really doesn't bother me if people like them. I mean, like just to go retread something else, but like Jedi is familiar with this. We were talking about Harry from the Spider-Man trilogy. It's like that's a character who wants to kill the protagonist because he thinks he murdered his dad. The protagonist won't tell him that he didn't because he made a promise to Norman at the end of the first movie not to tell Harry, right? And because of the protagonist's refusal to reveal what happened, it's creating. But the reason a character like that is sympathetic is because we don't see Harry committing crimes, killing innocent people. So we can interpret that if he did succeed in getting revenge, the city of New York is not going to be in trouble. We're not going to see him going around destroying life because he doesn't do that throughout the whole movie. So I'm saying that with a villain like that, I'm sympathetic because he doesn't act in a way that I would consider a normal antagonist who is doing destructive things to others to act. Where all of his evil actions are like centered around one person. We even see him in Mary Jane's apartment. He could have killed her and he didn't. So, I understand where people are sympathetic toward him. I'm certainly more sympathetic toward him than somebody like Killmonger. Oh, I had such a bad childhood, and uh, I, 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 I feel like angry at this whole country, and people from over there should be killed, including children. But I'm totally sympathetic because of my backstory. Dude, Harry is like one of the most sympathetic villains ever. Like he doesn't steal anything, he doesn't rob anywhere. Or I guess it's the same thing. You don't see him attack innocent people. Like you really could interpret that if you rooted for him and he got his way, he New York would not be that bad. Like he's the only villain that if they won, you wouldn't like there would be no like guarantee that oh my god everything is going to be terrible and there's this villain that's running around unchecked because he's not doing anything to other people. All of his antagonism is centered around the same individual. Let me see what this is. His backstory is literally just when I grew up in poor neighborhood and I blame other people for my failures in life. No, he's one of the best MCU villains. The only ones that might be better than him are Thanos or Loki, but he's one of the best ones. I'll take pretty much any villain over him. I'll take Thor's sister because I do empathize with the standpoint of me and my dad used to do evil things together, and then one day he changed, and then he banished me for like I get where somebody would be mad over that. I'll empathize with Gore from Love and Thunder because, I mean, his daughter died, and the gods just sat there and laughed at him. They could have helped him, and they just went and partied away. I mean, if my kid passed because of people who could have helped me just sitting on their behinds, I'd be pissed too. Dude, there are so many better MCU villains than Kill. It's not even funny. Like, I don't even think he would make the top 15. Oh my god. Like if we're talking about like complexity or like stuff that you could understand why they are the way they are, So many have him beat. It's not even funny. Well, I already said Loki is like he runs circles around him. It's not they're not it's not even a worthy comparison. Like Loki's one of the best MCU characters, period. He's the only villain that actually has an arc, like a multi-movie arc between the first Thor, Avengers, Thor 2, Thor 3, and like the start of Infinity War, where he goes from this straight up conniving antagonist to becoming like more morally gray as it goes on. Well, we're talking about the MCU. Magneto is not in the MCU. The X-Men aren't even in the MCU outside of like one little cameo by Patrick Stewart. I already told you the biggest problem is that for me the X Men films after the original trilogy with Magneto they just keep retreading the same thing over and over. Where he's a bad guy, then he's a good guy, then he's a bad guy, then he's a good guy again, he's a bad guy. I got sick of that. Dude, Gore is like so much like I don't even want to imagine how evil I would be if I had a child that died and then I found out that the people that could have helped me were all just sitting up there partying and like I and what's crazy is that it's so interesting how like he has like nowhere near the same level of accolade, but just his origin by itself makes him more sympathetic than Killmonger. It's really hard to just to just like imagine how angry you would be if that happened to you. You know the it's so interesting because like we were talking about like rooting for the killer or whatever. Like in Love and Thunder, when we get that first scene of him like getting the Necro sword and stabbing I forget the god's name, right? It's actually meant to be something that is cathartic to us because we just saw them laugh in his face. Oh, your daughter died. Well, tough luck, buddy. And then he gets the sword, right, impales him. Like we're supposed to feel cathartic from seeing that because these people they let his kid die and they could have stopped it. Gore the God Butcher actually compelling villain. I completely understand why you want to kill the gods. Yet remember, he's not unsympathetic, but also he's not a hypocrite because he doesn't kill children. We see him like kidnap them, but like he doesn't actually, and they attack him. But like he could have if he wanted to, but he doesn't. Like he scares them, but that I mean, I'd rather be scared than dead. Dude, Hello was sympathetic, even though she's not a I don't think she's written to be a sympathetic villain. Her whole motivation of I used to do bad things with my father, and then he turned a new leaf and just shut me out and had a new kid and replaced me. Like I can understand why somebody would be upset over that. You have the scene where she says, I thought you guys would be happy to see like to the Asgardians. Because at that point you're completely helpless and void of meaning, kind of like lots of Toy Story 3. Man, I haven't heard anybody talk about Toy Story in a while. Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Toy Story 3 the best-selling animated film ever? I remember when that came out, everybody was watching it. You know what's funny? So it used to be like the Toy Story duology. There are people who were like, "Oh, they should do TASM 3." And even though the second one came out almost 10 years ago, if they do a third one, it's going to make 2 or $3 billion, and it'll be like the Toy Story 3 of the series, where it's like this long-awaited sequel that everybody rushes out to see. It's just like keep dreaming. Like that, like the second one was so bad it killed like 5 movies, but if they do a magic third one, now everyone's gonna rush out. Get out of my face. God, I always like to repeat this. TASM 2 killed TASM 3, TASM 4, Sinister 6, the Black Cat spinoff. They were thinking of doing a Venom spinoff, which I like eventually got done, but was part of some other things. So it's just crazy to me. Like they actually believe make a sequel to this old movie that was not like Toy Story 1 and 2 got a sequel because years and years after they came out, people still talked about them, still liked them. TASM 2 is like the only reason that movie's even notable is because people think Garfield is hot and they were like retroactively sad that like people like you know what I'm saying. It's that movie is like in every way is not successful. It made 700 million at a time where superhero movies were making billions. It underperformed both critically and financially, and they said, "Hey, we let's go play ball with Disney." I feel like him kidnapping those kids was a part of him yearning to be with his daughter, like a kind of paternal instinct. Right, but I'm saying that you would think a guy who kidnaps children would be like unsympathetic, but he doesn't actually do anything to them. Like they're just all sitting up together. He doesn't like, you know, and he's like taking them to some destination, but actually like doing an evil act toward them. It's really mundane. Like it's more to spite the Asgardians than to actually you know, like do something. By the way, the Asgardians are less sympathetic than he is because it's implied that they ate their kids. So, you know, Gore's one of the I think is one of the best MCU villains. Like a lot of people trash Love and Thunder. I like it because Christian Bale in that movie just he's every scene he's in, he steals it. Seriously, like I was shocked. I mean, I kept saying, "Oh, the best Phase 4 villain was Green Goblin." It's like, well, I mean, I still probably like him the most, but if you think it's Gore, I can't say I disagree with you. It's hard not to empathize with him. I remember people were mad. They were like, "Why does he have a nose?" It's like, get out of my face, man. They changed designs and this stuff. You know, it's like crazy. It's like people got mad at him not having a nose, but they don't have a problem with Valkyrie getting be like going from being a blonde white girl to whatever. Like, it's just they always pick and choose what to be offended by. It's really interesting. I like that movie. We really got to see Thor's character development pay off in a satisfying way. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought I wouldn't because you didn't have Loki there, but I was surprised. I think it's probably the most underrated of any of the recent Marvel stuff because I like it. It's got a really good villain, um, who is easily one of the best in the series, in my opinion. It follows an arc that's been going on since 2011. You know, just I like it, and that's why it's so annoying that all the same usual channels who hate the Marvel stuff would always have to watch it because that's how they get their revenue. We're like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Hey, did you get your tickets to the first day show? Yeah, man, let's go. Dude, I'll never like it's so crazy to me how these people really believe that like this like it makes sense to be this way. Like you don't like a series of movies, but every time there's a new one, you're the first one to go see it. Your review is up within 24 hours of it coming out. And people don't think that's weird. I don't like this series of movies. That's why every time a new one comes out, I'm the first person to watch it. So YouTube has really allowed people to monetize their hate. It's interesting. I like that Thor saw why Gore wanted to kill the gods, and the movie ended with him letting Gore get his wish. Yeah, I like the ending. The ending is actually pretty I mean, I guess I shouldn't make this comparison, but it kind of. No, I'm not going to say it, but like, I like the ending because it takes like it really shows maturity on Thor's part to raise the kid of his of his latest enemy, and to like honor a commitment to a person that he has like no reason to even value the opinion of, or value the wishes of. And I really like the post credit scene. Like they made it to where now I want Thor 5. Dude, the only I think the only DC movie villain I like as much as some of the Marvel ones is probably like Zod from Man of Steel or something. We already talked about him before, Kotsky Merchant, how complex he is. It's so crazy because when that movie came out, I was 15. And like my, I guess, writing prowess was not what it is now. And then I watched it again like years later, and I was like, man, Zod was really complex. Like he's not. I wouldn't say he's sympathetic, but he's someone who everything he does, I understand. Like you're a person who exists to because you're like your mission is to preserve your race, which is why you want to make a new Krypton. And you don't want to kill Earthlings, but I mean, they're going to have to die if you're going to reform the planet to fit the atmosphere of your people. Um, and everything you do is in service of your people. And it's only all the way at the end when it seems like all of his people are dead. There's no chance anymore. It's all been destroyed. Where he like has this cycle, like this breakdown, which makes total sense because like this, his mission since he's been alive has now been destroyed permanently. It's really interesting just how like, and that's why I was so happy when I found out he was coming back for the Flash, because he's a really dynamic, multi-layered like that. There's a level of complexity in him that I have seldom seen from not only super villain like superhero movie villains, but just like antagonist in movies in general. Like everything he does is part of this specific mission, which is like a dedication to his people, like to his homeland, home planet. That's like the opposite of Superman, who's kind of like who's adopted Earth as his home planet and values them more than the people that he didn't even know, like he left when he was a baby. Like it's so interesting just how multi-layered he is in terms of like just the writing form. I find that like he's easily one of my favorite super villains in any superhero movie. Like that, the writing for him in that film is phenomenal. I remember we did a whole stream of Koski Merchant. He felt very believable from beginning to end, from his lines, expressions. I mean, oh yeah, Michael Shannon really sells it because he has that thing where he can look at you like what, and kind of like also like be authoritative, but then try to like make a plea that still comes from this source of strength, where he tells Jarrell that he doesn't want them to be on opposing sides. And then like he even tells Kal-El that like he killed his dad and it haunts him because he only did it because he was in his way of doing what he thought was right for his planet. Like everything he does is based around trying to keep his people, like give them some further chance of survival. And even if you don't agree with what he's doing, and no sane person would, because you don't want Earthlings to just get die for you know for some other group of people, you still understand it, you still get it, you still have this feeling that if there was another way, he would do it. Yes, I think Michael Shannon has a very menacing mug. menacing mean mug, and that really sold the character of Zod. I'm telling you, every scene that he's into that movie, he just it's like it makes it like 70% better. Like like just it's so interesting to have a villain where they have this mission, and the mission is fairly selfless as far as like, he's not friends with every Kryptonian, but it's like it's his job to like put them in some position where they can survive. And it puts him at odds with the protagonist, and he really doesn't want to do it, but feels like he has to. I just again, you don't see a villain like that in most of this stuff. Like it's crazy how complex he was when he said, "And now I have no people." I never felt that. I really felt that line so good. From the first time you saw him, that he was a powerful antagonist. If I remember correctly, aren't we introduced to him before we even see Kal-El? Like we see him first. No, Zod is the like in my opinion, and I haven't seen all the DCEU movies, but if you're looking for the best villain, it was the first one they did. Like I'm not even joking. Like I really wish they had done a Man of Steel sequel, and like instead of the whole like Doomsday thing for BVS, they had like found some way to bring him back and I just like I guess I just wish we could see what he would do in a scenario where Kryptonians had their own place, or if even if they didn't, the surviving ones were like becoming accustomed to Earth, like what his reaction would be like. Would he adapt to it? Would he still be evil? Like I just wish that like we could have had more of him. That's one of the reasons I don't like one of the problems I have with superhero films is they always get rid of the villain after one movie. Which is one of the reasons why I really like Loki, because they kept him around because of his popularity after Avengers, and we got to see his like development. And that's something a lot of the other ones don't get. Yeah, he didn't even have to lift a finger, and he still radiated with an air of power and domination. I mean, it's really crazy how complex he was. Like that's a villain who's sympathetic and intimidating, and it like like he just nails everything. He's menacing. He's got a motivation that's complex. Good performance, great performance. Like I just, damn, I wish I had my Zod prequel movie. He was the real star of Man of Steel. Like that was it's real. That's like one of the few times I think I mentioned like my brother saw it for the first time this year, and I asked him who his favorite character was, and he said Zod, and I was so surprised because he's never said his favorite character was the villain before of any movie. So like he's had a favorite villain like out of a series or something, but like favorite character of the movie was the villain. He didn't get any complaints from me. Seriously, the only modern DC villain I like more than Zod or as much as Zod is like Joker from Dark Knight. Like out of the last 20 something years of DC stuff, that's the only one that even comes close. Joker actually is kind of complex too to an extent. I mean, like his whole thing is like just being evil for the sake of evil, right? Watching the world burn. But there are little like subtle things like at the start of the movie, he's like, we have to kill the Batman, but then later on admits that he doesn't want to kill Batman because he wouldn't know what to do without him. Which in a way actually makes him like a mirror of Bruce, because it's like the villain doesn't want to kill the hero doesn't want to kill the villain. Really wish Heath Ledger hadn't have died. That was a really good character performance. All of it was just amazing. I guess it's so tragic to think about that in retrospect because like Joker's age is never stated in Dark Knight, but it's you can assume he's like 20 something. Like he's around the same age that Batman is. Like they're both young, you know, people. And it's like it would have been so interesting if instead of the dark like it being a trilogy, we actually got like you know several movies with the two of them and their dynamically. It didn't even have to be where he was the main villain again, but just like you know, seen here or there. What makes Joker so compelling is his connection to Batman. It's almost like a Tom and Jerry cat and mouse event where the Joker was egging Bruce on, and Bruce was always trying to figure him out. Well, like I said, Joker succeeds because he's it's a good performance, great performance. Um, it's an antagonist who always works very well with the hero in mind, and the like the chemistry between the two of them is also it's all that like every time they're on screen together, it's interesting. They're like very witty with each other. All of it just it works. That's why I said I really wish Ledger had not have passed. Like, and you know, that's just like that's also from the standpoint of just it's sad when someone young, you know, dies unexpectedly. But like, I really think if he had lived, they would have done probably another four movies or five. Like, if he lived and that performance became what it is today, like one of the you know greatest, not only like super villains but also just movie performances. Period. I really I highly doubt if he would have been left to just two appearances. I or one appearance. I doubt that completely. That's what I always thought was so weird. Like the Dark Knight trilogy is this very bizarre story because like I remember when Batman Begins came out, I was in like second grade. But the idea was that it would be like this new series, right? This younger Batman that we have time to spend developing. And they do a sequel to it 3 years later with the young Joker, and then the actor who plays Joker passes, and then Nolan doesn't even want to make a sequel, but he comes back and does one 4 years later. And it's like now it's the ending, and it's been 8 years, and Bruce can't get out of it. Like I don't know, I just always felt like it had it when it started. There was this ambition of building on it and going you know further and further. And because of Ledger's passing, like really blowing a dent in the ideas that Nolan had, he was just like, all right, whatever, to hell with it. So I really wish he had lived, or we could get maybe like some comic continuation. You know, like that was a really that was just another tragedy in cinema, I guess. Anytime they want to make a movie and one of the lead actors passes and they have to like completely rewrite stuff, it's always a tragedy because you're always going to be left wondering what would the movie have been if this person had you know survived. I mean, hey, we're gonna see that next month with Black Panther too. Like, I'm not even the biggest fan of the first one. I would still easily say, you know, Bozeman's passing was really sad. And I am very curious as to what the script was like when he was, you know, still around. But I blame Marvel for that because they didn't expect the first one to do as well as it did. And then they just like took forever to get it going and he passed in between. It would have been cool to see the Joker's empire expand and see other villains come into the scene similar to Patterson's Bat. Yeah, you know, like that's what I thought was crazy. Joker, you know, like okay, Ledger was like what 27 when they filmed that. If they make one movie every like 3 years, we could have had him play Joker for like another five or six of those. And again, Nolan's series, one of the things it did I really like was keep the villains around, except for like Ra's al Ghul. But we could have had him because we never get to see him interact with Scarecrow. You know, we could have had him interact with Bane in the third movie or Riddler as it was originally intended. They could have introduced Harley. Dude, imagine Nolan's Batman being like, "I've known the Joker for 6 years, and if you think you know, like you, like they could just." That's why I said like they could just keep building on it, and it. I don't know. It just it feels like it all ended so abruptly, and and like a big part of that is because of Ledger's passing, like messing up what Nolan wanted to do. God, so much stuff we could have had. It's always interesting to look at, like, just if things were a little bit different, how they could have gone. Like if this one person survived, if this one person did this, stuff like that. Dude, imagine Ledger's Joker killing Jason Todd, like that actually being the second to last movie in the series or something, where there's like you have like Dick Grayson Robin in like a fourth Nolan film, and then he becomes Nightwing, like after two movies or something, then they get a new Robin. Oh, there's so much Joker stuff that could have worked. That would have been something to behold. You know what's crazy is that if they actually did like a six-movie series and they brought Grayson into the third one as Robin, and then like they have him as Robin for like two movies, and then they have Jason as Robin for the fifth and sixth one. And for the sixth one, they have Joker just saying, you know what, this has to end sometime, or that, like basically the last movie's premise is based on this, is built around this idea that Joker has crossed this seminal line by killing this child who Bruce was like reluctant to take on because of his strained relationship with Nightwing. And like it's like a thing where he has to now finally decide, is he really going to kill this person that has done all this bad stuff to him in the past? Is he gonna, to let it slide? Because it could really, because like I've always said, morality. You remember how like there's always Joker had the line in Dark Knight about that one bad day, or people like changing and stuff like that, um, because of one awful thing that happens to them. It could really play into that same theme, and like it would work because we know that Joker in the past has done awful things to Bruce all the way back from Dark Knight in this hypothetical. I'm telling you that line that he has about I think you and I are destined to do this forever. I just hate that like that line is so anticlimactic when you just think about what real life caused. Like real life made it to where that line is just a thing that was said, and we never got to see it, you know, progress or any fruition come out of it. Damn, man. I hate how anticlimactic it is now. It could have played out so yeah. So I said it just if one thing was different, so much stuff could have been changed. Like there's a good chance that if Ledger had in the past, the Nolan trilogy could have started the DCEU. Because if you remember, Snyder wanted so it was I'm trying to remember who it was that wanted the Nolan films to be set in the DCEU, where like Nolan himself didn't want that, but other directors were like, "Hey, we should have a crack at this." That would be kind of cool to have Affleck, not Affleck, excuse me, to have Bale with Cavill. Dude, imagine two trilogies with Bale as Batman, and then like every time from then on he shows up, it's just in Justice League stuff. Like he still plays the role, but it's like part time now because he wants to do others. Because I've always said that like the biggest problem I have with actors is it just seems like they always want to move on to the next thing and they don't want to make any commitments. Which if they did it where it's like every 4 years, 3 years you play this character again, I think it would be a lot more sustainable as far as like how much longevity you could get out of him. So much stuff could have been different. And what happened to Akatsuki Merchant? He just vanished. He's always disappearing when I'm speaking. Seeing the DCU expand from Nolan's universe would be very interesting. Seeing how Nolan plays forms of power throughout the movie, such as time and space, would be cool to see implement in other DC stories. Yeah, and that's why I said the Dark Knight Rises was written with the intention of you'll never have another superhero story in this universe again. Like just completely killing the idea of it being set in the same universe with other stuff, or at least stuff taking place after that. But that's why I said I really wish we had gotten the like alternate timeline where Ledger lives, because I do think if he had because everybody like does trilogies, but I think if he had the option to still use them, we know he would have, and they probably wouldn't have ended at 3. Because like I said, if you watch Begins and Dark Knight, there's nothing there that signifies this is going to end in the next one. Like if you watch those two movies together, there's nothing in them that says, okay, the third one will be the last one, there'll be the final chapter. Like you look at Dark Knight, there's nothing in there about the League of Shadows. That was the villain from the first movie. And then, because the one everybody wanted to see was no longer available, uh no one was like, all right, I guess I'll bring them back. Let's make a sequel to what is considered one of the greatest superhero films ever, but it's going to be more of a sequel to its lesser liked predecessor. I'm just saying, like a lot of these trilogies that end are like it's always abrupt for a reason. I already told you, like the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is another good example. Like people are like, "Oh, it had such a perfect ending." Well, what's so perfect about it? I mean, it only ended because they pissed the director off so much of their intervention that he just got tired and said, "Forget it, I'm done," and didn't do the fourth one. But it's like you got the lizard still lurking in the background. He hasn't turned into his identity yet. It's been built up again in the background for multiple movies now. Um, I don't know. It's really interesting how like so much stuff retroactively is called trilogies or like seen as this complete story, but a lot of it was meant to. I mean, like you're probably familiar with this Jedi. The Star Wars stuff was totally different from how it turned out. Where originally there was supposed to be 6 movies where we wouldn't get the Emperor versus Luke until like the sixth one, and Luke's supposed to have a different sister, and um, like it's only when Lucas got so irritated working on Empire Strikes Back where he was like, "All right, whatever, the third one will be the last one." You know what I'm talking about? Where like stuff is so much different from how it actually turned out. I'm not even joking. I really do wish we got those like that whole 6 movie saga that he wanted to tell, because that does sound interesting. Like him finally meeting the Emperor in the sixth movie and having this sibling that's been like trained by their actual dad somewhere else. It's like, damn it, like, but he got so sick of working on that second one, he was like, all right, I'm done with this. Ugh. No, things could have been like we might not even have a sequel trilogy if that had happened. If he got to tell his full 6 movie saga with Luke, you might have maybe the prequels, and that still is debatable because those might be different based off of the notes that he had. So I said it's so interesting to see how much stuff morphed from a concept into something else, and to know what could have been made or what could have happened if they went a different direction. I just always found that so interesting about stories where the writer's like, "Hey, I originally had this idea and I changed my mind." Because it does like make me wonder, how would it be better? Would it have lasted longer? Like it's really crazy how many series could have gone longer if the writer didn't get sick of it. Agreed. And Luke was preparing for such an impactful road ahead, story wise. That's always thought was so weird. It's like he finally becomes the like proper Jedi, and then like according to Disney, I'm supposed to like just flash forward to 30 years later. See, in that version, it's like the first trilogy would be the origin, and then the second one would be him as a like active Jedi Knight. And I really would have preferred that over what we got. Just because it just I don't know, it just always felt to me like we finally get him as the proper true Jedi, and then that's it, it's over. That reminded me of the last Airbender where they wanted to do 4 seasons, and then stupid Nickelodeon was like, "Well, we're going to cancel your show, so make sure you combine your third and fourth into one." And then after they finished the show, Disney's not Disney, Nickelodeon's like, "All right, well, you got such high ratings, we need to be 12 more episodes." Like, but we just finished the show. They just kept flip flopping. First, we're gonna cut you down. Oh, good ratings. Here's some more episodes. Oh, you ended it. Well, I don't know. Do something with them. That's why I said that like there are so many shows and movies and other like different series that if things had just gone a little bit different, you could have had a whole extra season, extra trilogy. You know, like it's I just always found that idea interesting of like there's all this behind the scenes crap that makes stuff either last a longer time or a shorter time. You know, just like Clone Wars. I mean, that was a show that was what 7 seasons, and it only ended because Disney bought Star Wars, and like Lucas put out the different ideas they had for season 8. You know, like I really hate that that show didn't get the ending that he wanted. It ended because he couldn't make it anymore. It's a shame. There's so much potential left to discover from these really good stories. Yeah, but they get screwed over by studios, by people like, for example, with my show, I stopped doing it because I just got tired of like the rigmarole of you draw this, you write this, you hunt down voice actors, you have to sit in here and draw. You know, like I just got tired of that process. But you know, like I still to this day have I had story ideas for another 2 seasons. And I didn't even finish the third one. So it's like even with something where I don't have somebody over my head, there is a thing where when you make some, you just get fatigued, like you get tired of it. It's like I've been doing this for like 6 years. Like I just want to take a break, relax, you know? But that's what I'm saying of how like I really would hate the idea of working for a studio or a network or some company wherever, and then they go and pull the plug on my idea, and then like that's it. I can't make anything else. Yeah, people get fatigued with this stuff because you know, like it's really nice to have an idea that you want to see come to fruition, but usually the process of making of getting it to that point can be very grueling and frustrating. And that's why when we were talking earlier about how people don't understand what it's like to make stuff, they really don't get where somebody would like who every episode they have to draw 600 pictures and write a script and hunt down voice actors. You know, like what where like after a while that person would just gradually get tired of doing that because they've never done it before. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of potential that gets squandered because of you know networks that can't see the forest for the trees. Um, Creators that just get sick of the stuff altogether. You know, like there's a whole bunch of like, I guess what puts like this: if there was a way to create some kind of world in which actors didn't die abruptly, in which studios actually could just make shows perpetually, right, without trying to meet deadlines and stuff like that, you would have a much more fully realized scope of television and entertainment because there all these like behind the scenes things that kill stuff wouldn't exist. But I'm gonna get off of here because I've been going for 2 hours now. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you, Akatsuki Merchant. Thank you for your long-awaited return, Jedi Master. I hope the vacation was good. I know that Palm Springs has been looking pretty down this past summer, and I'll do another stream on Saturday. So have a good rest of your day.